Good evening, friends. Welcome to the SLN Show. I'm excited to be hosting this show as we are going to get perspectives from Amchi, Mumbai and from our neighboring country, Bhutan. Friends, the pursuit of happiness is real. We all want to be happy, right? After all, life's better when we are happy, healthy, and of course, successful. So, to help you make your life journey happy, not only in lockdown but post lockdown, I'm privileged to introduce our two esteemed guests, Dr. Swaroop Sampat Rawal, a renowned popular theatre and film personality, and a dynamic person who is well known. But there must be a fact which you don't know too well, that she was chosen last year as 10 among 10 best educators in the whole world. That's something commendable, Dr. Swaroop. I'm
Thank you.
proud for that. Not so much of you being a theatre personality, because this brings you in the same domain as us.
That's true. Thank you.
Our next guest for today is a dynamic personality who was earlier the education minister in the royal government of Bhutan, Mr. Norbu Wangchuk. Welcome to the SLN show, Dr. Swaroop and Norbu, sir.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Welcome. Happiness, they say, is a direction and not a place. So let's get the right direction from both these stalwarts. So my first question, or should I say statement, is to Swaroop ma'am. For every minute you are angry, they say you lose 60 seconds of happiness. What is your opinion about this statement, ma'am?
Okay, so I have a very different take on this. I'm not against happiness. Obviously, I'm not. You can see me smiling from year to year, and I'm very happy to be here. But I think that nature has given us a rainbow of emotions. We've got so many emotions in our lives that we just overdo happiness sometimes. So I am a bit offended by missing out on anger, because anger is a very important emotion. Do you realize that anger comes about when we know that something's wrong is happening against us? And yeah, it's a question of survival, and that's when we get angry. It's a motivating emotion. It's an emotion that energizes, it gets us to do things, it gets us to take actions. So I get a little upset when people get angry, don't like emotions like anger and fear, and just go on and on about happiness. I'm not against happiness. Happiness, joy, compassion, caring, all these beautiful emotions are very important. But Farzana ma'am, I think we should not be against anger and fear and emotions like that, because when we have a rainbow of emotions, as I say, why miss out on all of them and just latch on to one called happiness?
Very well articulated, Swaroop ma'am. I'm in sync with your thought that anger is as important as happiness. But it's how we balance ourselves,
That's
uh,
true.
which in this rainbow of emotions that you mentioned, ma'am, that we would be able to do and be much more happier, balanced personality. For me, Swaroop ma'am and Norbu sir, happiness is a place between too much and too little. So, my next question over to you, Norbu sir. Happiness depends upon ourselves. This is a great thought by Aristotle. What is your opinion about this thought, sir?
First of all, it's such an honor to be sharing this space with you, Madam Farzana, and to Dr. Swaroop. And Dr. Swaroop, you are an accomplished personality with your own right, but I must tell you, your husband, Paresh Rawal, is very, very popular here in Bhutan. He had entertained us, he had made us laugh, he had amused us. So I would like to invite Paresh Rawal ji, and of course, along with you, to come and visit Bhutan. Such an
Sure.
honor to be sharing this space with you. Madam Farzana, to respond to your question, that happiness is a choice. If a personality, if a philosopher and a tall personality like Aristotle had said it, who am I? How dare I disagree? I can only submit and really agree with him. But my own thoughts on happiness is that it is a worthwhile goal to pursue, or rather, a worthwhile state to be in. And in fact, as human species, ever since we stopped being a chimpanzee and we became more a human, that was about 1 million years ago, we had been seeking happiness. We had been seeking well being. And in other words, we had tried to free ourselves of pain, free ourselves of suffering. And fast forward 1 million years today, we had made big strides. Today we live longer than our forefathers. Today our babies have the greater chances of survival. Remember, 50 years back, maybe in some countries, 20 years back, half the babies born were dying. In terms of extreme poverty, in the 18th century, all of us were in extreme poverty. Today, the estimate is only 9% of the global population is in extreme poverty. So we have made huge strides in removing pain and suffering in our pursuit for happiness. But looks like we had now the price that we are paying today is a lot of stress. The 21st century world that we have gotten ourselves gives us a lot of, in this cutthroat competition, having to do so many things, juggle so many things. We are under tremendous stress, and notwithstanding this COVID pandemic that has brought in, made us more vulnerable, more uncertain. This is the time again to reflect on happiness, reflect on well being. And instead of looking outside, I think the choice that Aristotle mentioned, referred to perhaps, is to look within ourselves. And this is an area that we had not been giving much attention. There's a huge resources here where it is sustainable resource that we can harness joy, harness happiness, and harness well-being from.
Thank you so much, Norbu sir. In these lockdown times, especially now, it's important to remember we are all locked down, but we are not down. So, what you said, sir, makes so much sense because it's all in our minds, it's all within ourselves. And as they say, if you smile, the world smiles with you. If you are cheerful and happy, everybody around you will get that emotion too. So, moving on, um, Swaroop ma'am, Mr. Hunter Thomas has said, and I quote him, "Who is the happier person, ma'am? He who has braved the storm of life and lived, or he who has stayed securely on shore and merely existed?" Your comments, please, Swaroop ma'am.
Okay, so I definitely agree. It's your experiences, and the more experiences that you have, the better you will be, the happier you will be, the more well being you will have. There is this research which is suggesting, for example, the more number of emotions that you've experienced, the names of emotions you know, the larger your emotional lexicon, the more stronger you are mentally and physically health wise. And it has actually been shown, demonstrated that when you are really got good emotional understanding and management, you visit the hospital less. Isn't that just fantastic? So just imagine a skill like understanding and managing your emotions, makes you so much better. Now you will understand and manage your emotions better when you have more experiences. So if you have less experiences, you've experienced less emotions and you have less understanding of it. So the more you experience, the more emotions you're exposed to, the larger your lexicon is, the more your granulation is, and the stronger you are mentally, physically, and emotionally. Isn't that beautiful?
I think it's just superb. It's so apt that
Yes,
we should, as they say, be risk takers. We should experience different things, ma'am,
yes,
and accept
definitely.
challenges. Like I have accepted your challenge every day on Twitter.
Oh, yes.
So, so
Thank
I
you.
I also love to be a risk taker and accept challenges. Helen Keller has said something which is very worthwhile at this point, and she has said, life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. So
Absolutely.
now with that, we move on to our next question for Norbu sir. Sir, we tend to forget that happiness doesn't come as a result of getting something we don't have, but rather of recognizing and appreciating what we have. Sir, in your country, the happiness quotient is very high. Why is it so?
Well, let me first of all clarify that we in Bhutan, not all Bhutanese are flying in the clouds with joy and total happiness. I must tell you, we have our own share of pain and suffering like anybody else around any part of the world. Perhaps the difference is that we in Bhutan really take happiness seriously. We take happiness at the next level. So that's why we have happiness as a goal mandated in our written constitution. And we actually measure happiness like many economies would measure GDP growth rate. We measure gross national happiness growth rate. And every government that comes to power is by mandate by the people of Bhutan given this core responsibility to actually promote happiness in the country. And therefore, the concept of gross national happiness is really based on this belief that humanity's ultimate worthwhile goal is happiness, to be free of pain and suffering. And this is also based on the belief that human beings have not just the material and the physical dimension, but they have other dimensions: the spiritual dimension, the emotional dimension, the mental dimension, social, aesthetic, cultural dimension as well. And so, one dimension hijacking the others would definitely give us lesser well being and lesser happiness. And that's why when our fourth king announced that for Bhutan, gross national happiness is more important than GDP. That was an outright rejection of the mindless economic growth that the entire economic model was based on, and that was sometime in 1972, and it was a very bold statement to make. But now, after 50 years, it makes a sense all around the world. So we respect inclusive economic growth. We respect ecosystem environment. It's a habitat that all of us, men, and of course the human species, being just one of the species that thrive in the ecosystem, that we share this ecosystem, and it values gross national happiness, values social relationship, it values emotional, mental, and spiritual dimensions as well. So this is the entire pursuit of gross national happiness, the quotient that you mentioned, which is based on it.
That's so awesome. Bhutan is such a small country in Asia, but I think the happiness quotient is highest. So we may be big democracies, but I think we have a lot to learn from Bhutan. So the happiness of your life obviously depends upon the quality of your thoughts. It's not how rich or how poor or how happy or unhappy I am. It's my life. If I am satisfied with what I have, faced whatever challenges, as you mentioned, sir. So moving on from happiness, let's move to our next subtopic, well-being. So my next question to Swaroop ma'am. We are learning organisms and learning promotes mental health. There are certain plenty of opportunities for that during these lockdown times. We are all on a steep learning curve, whether it's getting our heads around the new video conferencing software. Should I use Zoom? Should I use StreamYard? Should I use YouTube? It's amazing. We've learned a lot and we've learned it fast. Or I'm sure Swaroop ma'am and I and other women in our audience will say creating palatable dinners for our family, looking at what we have in the kitchen store, and then cook up something which is interesting for our family. So, ma'am, tell me, how have you looked after the well being of yourself, your family in these COVID-19 times?
Okay, so thinking, when you talk about well being, it's a very important thing for me to have a set program. So you need to have a timetable. In the senses, just don't let your life be chaotic. Do things with the regular thing. In the senses, have a regular time for getting up and then maybe doing your pranayam, doing exercises, having tea, sitting around and talking with your friends and family rather. I don't use like the phone too much, and now that the cells are there, I hate it more because it becomes really hot and I just don't like it. So I'm not much of a phone person. I rather sit and chat with my family. So then we sit and hang around. But then when it's 10 o'clock, no matter what is happening, I get up to go in the kitchen because I'm in charge of the lunch. So I get the lunch and the breakfast all set and rolling. And that means I have more time for myself. And that's how I've been able to manage to do this life skill challenge, which I've been putting up every day on Twitter. The other thing is that, the afternoons I leave for work. So I'm an editor of an e-journal. So we've been reviewing papers and, thinking and talking about how education should be and how it is and, stuff like that. And then again, evening tea time is always a fun time in my house. So we sit and chat. I think being with your family, spending good time, communicating with your family is a very important part of well-being. Because like there is that poem which goes, "No man is an island." So just being alone is no fun. And that's one reason in our house we just have one television. So everybody has to share television time. You just can't go running off to your room to watch television. Of course, we sometimes get beaten by the laptop, but that's okay. And yeah, but so that's what we do things together. Yeah, since the last 3 4 days, my eldest son has decided to do gardening, and we have a tiny little balcony which is that square inch type, and over there he wants to now grow tomatoes, he wants to grow potatoes, ginger, garlic, and I say, hey, hello. He says no. So if the lockdown is extended, I'll give you food. But he's so crazy because it's going to take 2 years for anything to grow. But that's fun. So again, what Sir said is right. Happiness in the well-being, is very important because, like again, I'll come back to physical and mental and emotional health. There is a health triangle, and you just have to take care of all sides of your health. And that is why I like a program, and that is why I mentioned exercise, because you cannot be physically weak and mentally strong, or emotionally strong and mentally weak and physically weak. No, it's a health triangle. So everything goes together and you have to balance it out. So this is how I've been doing. But lots of talking, lots of fun. And I'll give you one beautiful example is that my son had a film release and we saw the film together at night. And after the film, all of us sat and the four of us sat down to discuss what do you call it, acting. And that was great fun because if it wasn't for the lockdown, we wouldn't have been caught in my drawing room watching Anirudh Aditya's film release and discussing acting. We would have probably been out and Aditya probably would have been partying. So this is what I've been doing.
Watch
Um,
it.
Sorry, I wanted to mention the name of the film. Aditya had a film release, and the film's name was Bumfire, and it was released on Z5. I think it's
Super.
still running on Z5, and you can see it there.
An interesting watch.
Yeah.
Very interesting watch.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I've read somewhere, and I think it's very relevant. We are all in the same storm, but in different boats. So, well being is important for everybody during lockdown because we are all in the same storm. Each one has some different issues to sort out and be
I
happy.
deal with, yes.
So, Sir Norbu, from gross national happiness, we are moving to well being. The single biggest threat to our own well being tends to be ourselves. My question to you, sir, is coronavirus is a threat to our physical health, and the crisis is a threat to our mental health. We are all so scared and worried. Your comments on how we can enhance our mental health and thus our well being in these COVID-19 times.
Madam Farzana, in one way, COVID-19 pandemic seems to be unprecedented. It created a situation of uncertainty, made all of us feel very vulnerable and unsafe. Some of us feel very inadequate. We feel sense of loss and confusion, distrust. But very generally speaking, in another sense, the kind of development and growth that we had pursued for a very long period of time, we actually had created this situation, what we call the 21st century world, the VUCA world. And even before pandemic, I think there was certainty, maybe in lesser intensity, but certain uncertainty, vulnerability, inadequacy, the fear is there. But in my own reflection, I think for our well being and happiness all along, disproportionately our focus and attention was on the physical and the material to make ourselves happy and feel well. We made ourselves big cars and we bought ourselves bigger cars, smarter gadgets, and more wealth, bigger houses, holidays in the exotic destinations. I'm not saying these are bad, but these have been our focus and attention to give us this sense of well being and sense of happiness. So we have learned the skills to acquire things and stuff from the outside to raise our well being and happiness. And therefore, this COVID 19 pandemic, in my reflection, had shown to us that what we lack is a very different kind of skills to look into, search the journey inside. There is this neglect to harness these resources within us, the emotional resilience, the emotional intelligence, the mental well-being, the spiritual well-being, which resides within. Perhaps COVID-19's upside is that we learn to get these skills, just as we have learned the skills to get bigger cars and bigger houses and more wealth, more fame, and more popularity. We could perhaps learn more skills to bring out from within for our well-being. And my invitation to all our viewers is that during this COVID-19, to investigate this rich resources within us, because within us is this beautiful, Madam Dr. Swaroop mentioned, the rainbow of emotions that are there. So we must discover this rainbow of joy, delight, pleasure, happiness, sense of well-being that just are waiting to blossom. And I think that is possible. Science says that is possible. Experts and gurujis and sages tells us that this is possible. And pandemics, lockdown compels us to make this investigation.
So true, sir. So true. We are anxious. We are frustrated. Many of us are bored and lonely. We are doing multiple things. But I think one thing which I've learned during lockdown is time management skills, which has made me not only physically but mentally strong, juggling between children, madly busy job, which just got much more busier because the demands of online teaching have increased. And then we now have to do from the kitchen table, we have to do our Zoom meetings and just worry that I hope my colleagues don't see all the mess on my kitchen table when I'm busy doing some work from my desk. So these are difficult, unsettling, unprecedented times. We are all feeling strong emotions, rainbow of emotions to make things work. The lockdown is cutting off many of our usual ways of coping. So, our mental health is an issue. And thank you, sir, for your lovely tips. Because I also, from today, I'm going to look within to see what I can do to become more stronger, both physically and mentally. So, thank you, sir, for these lovely tips that you gave us. Swaroop, ma'am, over to you. Taking the cue from what Norbu sir said, you know, about looking within, I'm also saying looking around. How can life skills be encouraged in these lockdown times to ensure we are a happy and bonded family? I think this is the time for it.
Before I continue, Farzana ma'am, I would like to really compliment Norbu sir for for his talk and the words he's sharing with us, because they're really reaching a very deep part in my heart. And while he's speaking, I'm thinking, oh wow, I just really am so much in sync with what he's saying. But I love the way he's saying it. It's so genuine and it's so true. So thank you, Norbu sir, for all that you're telling us. It's really beautiful. And I mean it. I've never really interrupted a webinar to, talk to another person and say, you are superb. Thank you, sir. And yes, about life skills. So that is exactly like what Norbu sir said. And it's about, that's why, one on the day of the lockdown too, let me tell you from my personal point of view, I got up in the morning and the first thing I thought of is, Swaroop, the family is going to be caught and stuck in the house. Kids, some of them ranging from little kids to old people, and all of us are just going to be stuck in the house for the next 21 days. Sometimes grandparents can be irritating, sometimes they can be fun, sometimes kids can be irritating. Everybody wants everybody's time, everybody has extra demands because everybody is so anxious and unsettled with what's happening. So, why don't you use your skills to do something about it? And that's why I thought about the 21-day life skill challenge, which I extended to lockdown 2 challenge. In this life skill challenge, I started giving the family something to do which all could do together. And I found so many people who replied to me and said that we sat with the whole family and worked on life skills. Now, life skills is not age related. Life skills begins from birth and goes on till when we're dead. So we need life skills in every step and every age of our life. Now, life skills needs a lot of practice. So that's the thing, is that you can go on practicing it because it's a skill, you need to practice it. But I am very lucky that I have got a huge drama training. So which better way to teach? Drama is experiential learning. So I started using drama games to get the family to do life skills together. Serious things like understanding emotions, managing emotions, understanding the skill of empathy, understanding compassion, communicating. And that video of Paresh and mine just went viral and it's got like a million billion views, where Paresh and I are both constantly talking to each other, which is what we do sometimes. We just go on talking. No one's listening. So when you start listening, when you stop talking. And these are small little lessons which I thought, since I've got a captive audience, nobody is going anywhere, they can really learn and it would help them. A lot of teachers have told me that they've actually kept my videos and are going to use it for schools, and they feel that they've learned a lot. And this is something in sync with what Norbu sir said. I have started the new one, which is not lockdown 3, but it's renaissance, and it is about people who've influenced my values. We forget our old people, our grandmothers, our grandparents, and we think we're just seeking new stuff. But we forget that it's actually the old which is our roots, and that is what is going to make us strong. That is from where, spirituality, for example. And when I talked about my first person who influenced me, I talked about my ba, that is my grandmother. And I remember sitting next to her and praying to Lord Krishna. And my love for Lord Krishna came from there. Spirituality, it came from there. And spirituality was not just praying to God, but she taught me such a beautiful thing about maintaining relationships and not breaking relationships. So these are tiny things which make such a huge difference. So this is what life skills is about, and I think this is very important. Yes, that's communication. So actually, it's proving the opposite. He's not the loser. I mean, I'm not the loser. He's the one who lost because he never listened to me. And I listened and I stopped talking. So, yes,
Lovely. It was such a lovely, hilarious, but it is teaching such an important skill, such a very important skill, you
that's
know.
right. Yeah.
Um, Swaroop ma'am, they usually say when you can't control the wind, it's okay, but you can, of course, control the sails. That's exactly what I'm sure you are telling, and I'm telling our parents to do whatever they can in their own small way to imbibe life skills in their children. I give you my own example. I have a little grandson, and we teach him life skills, simple things, mopping the floor, put on the music, and we are all dancing to a rhythm and we are mopping the floor. He doesn't even realize that he's learning something. And I
Yeah.
got this. These are just fun things that you can do and imbibe life skills in your children. So, moving on to you, Sir Norbu. Mindfulness can help with stress and also with our relationships by increasing empathy and compassion. We are all experiencing strong emotions, as both of you all have said at this moment because of lockdown. This is a new and difficult situation. Bhutan, like happiness, is also famous for mindfulness practices. Can you share some ideas about mindful practices with us, sir?
Well, what I know of mindfulness is that it's the attention and your attention and your awareness that you would like to direct to an object or anything that is of your choice. So not letting the mind wander on its own. And interestingly, now there's this growing body of science, and very good science at that, that the mindfulness practices has huge benefit, positive benefit on our health. It contributes to our well-being, and it raises good emotions of joy and happiness. Mindfulness triggers the right biochemistry that is helpful and beneficial to us physically and mentally. Mindfulness uh, connects the brain circuitry, which is again beneficial to us, and it It transforms our views and perspectives of life and world at large, that is useful and beneficial to us. And really, at the end of it all, I think as human beings, as we go along this 21st century life, we have to constantly manage pressures and stresses and setbacks. And this is one important life skill that Dr. Swaroop made a reference to. And we have to constantly, because we are social beings, we have to constantly forge good relationship. If we mess up on our relationship, whether it is with our spouse or whether it is our immediate family, neighbors, community, that adversely impacts our well-being and the happiness of ourselves and the society at large. And mindfulness induces positive emotions, and these are good signs that backs mindfulness now. And that's why my focus these days had been to encourage people to investigate in their own lives. And I invite again our viewers to pay attention and care to this mental dimension, to this spiritual dimension, and take up anything. Take up nature walk, take up yoga, take up mindfulness practices, and the resources are plenty. And because the science is strong, because the sages have been doing it for ages now, and I invite our viewers to really examine and try it out. I'm not an expert. I've learned very recently, and I must tell you that the benefits are tremendous. And I'd like to share this benefit to every viewers and invite them to take it up, because we are the person made up of our emotions, made up of our thoughts, many thoughts that goes in our head. We are made up of our feelings. We are made up of our beliefs. And if we are made up of these emotions, thoughts, beliefs, we better take charge of these emotions and not let them go wild. And mindfulness is this one scientifically proven skill that all of us, competency that all of us can learn to take charge of these emotions and convert it into something that is beneficial for our health, for our spiritual dimension, for our mental well-being as well.
So before, sir, I visited Bhutan last year. I had wondered why Bhutan was listed as one of the happiest countries in the world. But after visiting, I sort of realized the answer for myself, your people, including you and your king, know the purpose of human existence, and that is learn how to love. And therefore, they've placed their efforts in the right direction by creating an environment of peace, care, and joy. Traveling to Bhutan for me was a unique, life altering experience. I felt transported to an alternate reality, like a paradise situated in the mysterious mountainous kingdoms of Shangri La. It wasn't that the Bhutanese people, as you have rightly said, sir, have no challenges. They, of course, have challenges. But I observed that in spite of the challenges, their hearts were always open and their attitude was so mindful. So, hats off to all of Bhutan for teaching the world how to be happy and how to be mindful. So, Swaroop ma'am, over to you, ma'am. They say we are social animals, and relationships are fundamental to our well-being, and that's what Norbu sir also just mentioned. Social support can even boost our immune system. Isolation is currently a huge issue for many of us in lockdown. Any tips how we can still connect with friends and family and maintain our well-being? Ma'am, over to you.
There are so many things we can do. One of the things is let's talk and let's listen, because I think communication is a very beautiful thing. And when I talk about communication or think about communication, I realize that communication is such a brilliant skill given to us, because it not only can it depends on our relationship, on how good we are. Like you and I get along so well, so we can communicate well. But it also, improves relationships. So I think that this is the time when nobody is going anywhere. Let's communicate
Very true.
with our family and let's learn things. Like, so I remember that in one of my challenges, I'd given things like ask questions and ask or talk about, for example, the time when you were really naughty in school, and then ask your father and mother and maybe grandparents when they were naughty in school. I bet you didn't know that. So, it's when people start talking about their life stories and start telling about the experiences they've shared, and that's how you learn in any case. So I think that's very important. Like I remember mummy would always go on about how my grandmother, I was talking about not breaking up relationships. And today I was just talking about how I've learned so many things from my Masi sitting at home. And that is what we are. We learn from every step of our life because our self is formed by the people around us. So why not at this time take this opportunity to talk to people, to understand what they are like, what are the things that made a difference in their life, what are the difficulties they faced, and things like that. Um, I think it's about nurturing your mental health, right? So that can be done when you're talking, when you're empathizing, when you're doing things for people, like I remember my son who's a very fussy eater suddenly tells me, this lockdown, mom, you make whatever you want, I'm not going to make a fuss. And just today he was saying, lockdown's going to get over. So I'm going to start making a fuss again. But, that's the whole point is the time when I'm in stress, he's not giving me extra stress, So this is what it is. And laughing, like happiness, I think having a great laugh with your family is very important. And of course, sometimes they think I'm mad because there am I giggling and laughing over stupid things. And then I just make the whole atmosphere in the house, suddenly lighter. But, there are so many, hormones that are being secreted when you're laughing. And it does make a difference. Fun is a very important part of life. And as a teacher, I think fun is the only way you can learn. So when I'm talking so lightly and I'm talking so simply, do not think it is frivolous. It is very important. It's a very important message that I'm giving. But my style is just saying it softly and with fun. I cannot possibly, and so Farzana, I think you should be doing, oh God, no. I think I would just die doing that. So I think fun is very important. So this is a time you can have a lot of fun with your family. What do you say, Farzana?
I think it's so, so very important. What you said, ma'am, makes so much of good sense. Interestingly, I also feel in many ways the current crisis is helping us to connect much more. The crisis has shown us the limitations of a competition driven society. Schools who used to be in competition with one another are connecting and sharing ideas on these platforms of how to do online teaching. So I think the lockdown has got its positive benefits, and we should think about those things for our mental well-being rather than cribbing and just making a fuss
I
about,
think it was
oh.
I think God's way of saying, hey, slow down. Like Norbu sir was saying, exotic destinations. You're going to exotic destination, but you haven't seen your neighborhood, which is so beautiful and it's ridiculous. You want to talk to all the great people in the world, and you haven't talked to your father or mother, who's the most wonderful person. You haven't sat and held their hand. It's ridiculous. And I think this was nature and God's way of saying, stop down, relax, go back to where you are coming from. What do you say now, sir?
I Yes, sir.
No,
Would you like to comment something?
no, I just want to agree and just confirm what Dr. Saruk mentioned.
Superb, superb. So, at least I don't know what's happening in Bhutan, but at least here in India, our connect as a whole India has become so great. I don't think I remember even in my lifetime that the whole of India clapped thalis together, clapped
Yes.
hands together, they showered flowers. The whole of India came together. This is what I say is the good connect which this pandemic has given us. That India is now talking as one, not as Northern India or Southern India. We are one. So I think I'm sure this same feeling must be in Bhutan too. Everybody connecting because now the enemy is unknown and we have to fight that enemy, all of us together. So over to you, Norbu sir, for the next question. The secret of health for both mind and body is not to mourn for the past, not to worry about the future, or not to anticipate troubles, but to live in the present moment wisely and earnestly. Live for now rather than worry about the future. What is your opinion about this, sir?
Madam Farzana, uh, don't ask me how, but somebody has counted the number of thoughts that invade our mind in a day. And the number is something like 60,000 thoughts that invade our mind in a day. But that is not the bad news. The bad news is 80% of those 60,000 thoughts are somewhere along the negative. It's about fear, that thoughts that cause fear, thoughts that cause worry, anxiety, guilt. And when we are in our past, and when we are into our future, we worry into the future. We feel a sense of guilt and distrust because of the past experiences. And again, interestingly, 90% of these negative thoughts are repetitive. So, which essentially means that when we get up with negative thoughts about the past and into the future. What is the implication? The implication is that the same thoughts causes the same biochemistry in us, what the experts call it, the emotions. And these emotions trigger actions and decisions for us. So we become the same person, and we become the same person because of the negative thoughts. And looks like we are not hardwired for happiness at all. The evolution that we have come through, we are hardwired for fear and anxiety. And perhaps that is why it is easy for us to be on autopilot, be into the future or be into the past. And the magical moment is in the present. And to be in the present is to break that autopilot, because it is in the present when we are, for instance, communicating with our wives and husbands, like the beautiful visual between Paresh Rawalji and Dr. Swaroop, when the husband and wife are in communication, rather than being in the autopilot and preparing your next response, engaging in an argument of point scoring, mindless argument. Maybe you could be mindful and pay attention, be on the present. When we eat, for instance, which happens to me, you would be eating and the plate would be empty, but you would not really remember what was the flavor. What did you eat? We watch televisions mindlessly, we drive mindlessly. So, this mindfulness, being in the present that you mentioned, is an important element where we train the mental capacity to snatch our attention from the past and the present and be in the moment, because being in the moment is where magic happens. And this is one benefit of mindfulness practices.
Thank you so much, sir. I would say, how would our life be so different? You know, if you were conscious about the food you ate, the people you surround yourself with, the media you watch, listen to, or read, let today be the day, is what I feel. Pay attention to what you feed your mind, your body, and your life. Create a nourishing environment conducive to your growth and well being. Today is the day, whether it's lockdown, post lockdown, whenever you start, that's the day when you'll start feeling much better when you create this whole nourishing environment around you. So, Norbu sir or Swaroop ma'am, any questions for any of us?
No.
There is a question which someone has asked. How do we measure our happiness and well being? One of you can take it.
Well, we in Bhutan, as I mentioned earlier, we take happiness very seriously, and we go to the extent of actually measuring it. And I'm not saying our measurement is perfect, but we measure it every 5 years. And mind you, this is a very long and comprehensive set of questionnaires that we ask individually. And I'm told that at the end of the 2 hour or 1 hour long questionnaire that we ask the person, the happiness level actually drops down, having to do this tedious answering. But seriously, we we have this objective and the subjective measurement. We have built in what is the construct for happiness as we see it. We have 9 domains: health, the relationship part. Of course, we don't reject the economic development, but economic development that is sustainable and that is inclusive, our reverence for environment, the culture, the community vitality. So
Okay.
all of these 9 domains are put into this mathematical computation, and we arrive at what the GDP growth rate, similar to what the GDP growth rate indicates, 5% increase or 2% increase. So we have the ultimate one figure. And the latest survey of the happiness that we did in Bhutan, we were told that 93% of the Bhutanese reported that they feel very happy, extensively happy.
Superb. Superb. Very well said, sir. Very well said, sir. So, another question which has come up, out of 24 hours, how many can be happy hours? Ideal ratio according to you, Swaroop ma'am, Norbu sir, and Farzana.
I don't think I would like to give a ratio for this. I think you need to be happy. And more than happy, you need to be very calm and joyful all the time. So I don't know if Norbu sir has a ratio. I would put the question to him. That's a very weird question. I
Well,
don't know about ratios and things like that. No.
well, I guess the effort should be to be 100% happy all throughout every moment, if that is possible, to be able to look into a tree, for instance, and really relish the bounties of nature there. Look into the sun rays and look into the rainbows, look into the sky and be happy about it. Have these positive joys and positive emotions as you interact with your family, your colleagues, not being inhibited and prohibited with negative emotions of distrust, but be really open and calm and peaceful, and really embracing everything that life has to offer. And I think that would be a worthwhile cause to pursue.
Yeah.
Happiness, another question, sir, for you all. Happiness is most times taken away by the action of others. Would you say that this is true? Why do we give up our happiness because of that?
So here I would say is this is where you really need to learn to manage your emotion and not let external factors affect it and affect it negatively. And even if something's terrible happening to you, you should be able to balance your life out. And that is the whole thing about managing your emotion. Again, I'm saying managing, not controlling.
Very important. It's important to be strong-willed and do what you think is right. Don't do what the world thinks is right.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, I think it would be a bad idea to let outside of you, let others take charge of your well-being and
Correct.
happiness. And we should take charge of our own happiness.
That's true.
And there's only so much we can control the external world. The external world will continue to be the world it is designed. The only thing we can control is our reaction to these experiences, reaction to these triggers. So when you are with your boss, there's only so much you can change your boss, but there's so much you can change how you react to the boss. And there is this possibility that even as the boss would throw the report on your face, you would smile and you would accept it. And that is something that is possible. It is within our control, not boss is not in your control.
That's right. I would say, like how you say, Norbu sir, that's where peace and mindfulness comes in. And that's how you're going to have manage it. You need
Exactly.
to have that sense of peace, and you need to be mindful about what you're doing and how you're behaving. And I
So
think
true.
through spirituality, and that is one aspect which people are not ready to talk about, and I'm so glad you talked about it too, sir. I think that's where spirituality would really help you. That's where you would get your inner strength from. When things are bad around you, that is the way you would be able to still stand upright with your spine straight.
If lots of problem in someone's family members relationship and they are not speaking with each other, then contact how to correct, I'm sure he wants to say how to correct that situation.
So you'll
So
have to start talking. I would like to answer this. I've got a beautiful example. I was working with the KGBVs. Sir, KGBVs are the Kasturba Gandhi Balika Vidyalayas in India. They are for the most socially and economically backward girls. So I was teaching them life skills, and one of my students learned about life skills from me, and she told me about how she changed her family situation. She told me that her father and the father's brother were not talking to each other at all. They had a very bad relationship. They were not even on talking terms. So after she learned about communication from me and how she learned that communication can improve relationships, she went and told her father. So the father said, okay, since you know how fathers listen to daughters, so the father said, okay, I'll try it. So one morning, the father told the elder brother who was not talking to him, Jai Shri Krishna. So the brother very reluctantly said, "Yeah, Jai Shri Krishna," and went on. The next day again he said, "Jai Shri Krishna." So he says, "Ha ha, Jai Shri Krishna," and went. Third day the father says, "Chai piyenge. Will you have tea?" So he said, "Okay, I'll have tea." And that's how the ice broke, and that's how the father and the elder brother started talking to each other. And she came back to me and she said, "Ma'am, they are now got their whole relationship has changed, and they are talking to each other and communicating their problems with each other. But somewhere or the other, you need to break the ice and go on." This is a true story, and it's actually been done by one little girl in a tiny little village in Saurashtra.
so that is why, Swaroop ma'am, they say you are one of the 10 best teachers in the world.
Yes, that's right.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I just
Yeah.
Sir would like to say something.
I just wanted to add on to what Dr. Sarup said, and I'm such a big fan of emotional intelligence. And as I look around, most of the problems that families go through are really signs and manifestations of poor emotional intelligence or lack of emotional intelligence.
Yes.
um, uh, even in a what apparently could be a perfect family with no financial problems and everything going well, you could see the family is dysfunctional just because there is this lack of emotional intelligence either in one of the members or in all of the members of the family. Emotional intelligence, meaning recognizing and being aware of our own emotions, and
Right.
then recognizing the emotions of others, and therefore regulating and managing these emotions. Because not only are you transacting intellectually, but every intellectual cognitive transaction is wrapped and packaged with the emotions that flow across each other. And when then these clashes, then all this feud and fight happens in the family. And I think
Hmm.
emotional intelligence, unfortunately, is not receiving the due attention in our education system. An education system that is focused on the cognitive, the intellectual, the thinking brain only. But
True.
in life, as I had seen it, whether it is in organization or anywhere else in the family, personal life, it is the emotion that plays a major role. Your thinking brain can be overshadowed with your bad emotions. Your thinking brain can be enhanced with good emotions, and families can work together. Families can be beautiful, good family if there's emotional sense of emotional intelligence in the family.
Correct.
So well said, sir. So well. I hope it answers that whoever has asked that question. Another question: how much will meditation help to achieve mindfulness in daily life? There is not, at least if I were to answer it, I would say it's not how much. It's, I think it's a practice that you need to do on a daily basis. You know, you need to meditate.
Yeah, actually, mindfulness has come from that, right? And, so yes, not how much, it's to each his own.
Hmm.
But I think it is very important to do it sincerely every day and make it a practice.
So I think we're coming right up to the end of the show. So thank you, Swaroop ma'am and Norbu sir, for joining us on this SLN show. Viewers, please watch further SLN shows. We make it a point to bring in different perspectives by inviting a range of prominent speakers. Thank you very much once again to
Thank
these
you.
eminent personalities who spared their valuable time to come and share their perspective about happiness and well being. And to all my viewers, have a great, safe evening at home with your loved ones. Lockdown has some positive effects. Please remember. Jai
Yes.
Maharashtra, Jai Hind.
Thank you very much. And we are coming to Bhutan.
You
Yes,
must bring your husband along.
Definitely. Thank you, Farzana ma'am. Thank you, Norbu sir. It was a pleasure.
thank
Thank you.
thank you, sir. Thank you, Swaroop ma'am.